Hi, and welcome back to the channel for The Haunting Hour. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment before viewing. Enjoy your viewing. The steam clouded the mirror, blotting my reflection into a pale ghost. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to shake off the day's frustration. It was always worse at night, the feeling of being watched even when alone. Suddenly, a raspy whisper sliced through the hiss of the shower. "Let me in." My heart hammered against my ribs. It was faint, barely audible, but unmistakable. The first time I heard it, I was 8, huddled in the bathtub after a bad dream. Back then, it had sounded whimpering, pleading. Tonight, it was a gravelly command. I held my breath, waiting for the telltale sound of a knob turning, of a desperate hand reaching for the lock. But there was nothing, just the whisper hanging heavy in the air. Gathering my courage, I reached out and turned the faucet off. The silence that followed was deafening. "Mom!" I called out, my voice shaky. "Did you hear that?" A muffled reply came from downstairs. "Hear what, honey?" A sound. "In the bathroom." She sighed. "Probably just the pipes acting up again. You know the old house creaks and groans." I knew she was right, logically, but the voice, it felt too real, too intentional to be something as mundane as creaking pipes. "Okay," I mumbled, trying to sound convinced. Taking a deep breath, I approached the door, my hand hovering over the knob. My fingers trembled. Every instinct screamed at me to keep the barrier between me and whatever lurked on the other side. But curiosity, or maybe a morbid fascination, spurred me on. Slowly, I turned the knob. The bathroom door creaked open, revealing a narrow hallway bathed in the dim glow of the nightlight. There was nothing. Just the same old dusty hallway, the same peeling wallpaper. Empty. Relief washed over me, momentarily. Then, as I meant to close the door, I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. A fleeting shadow flitted across the wall at the far end of the hallway, just before disappearing behind a closed door. My stomach lurched. Maybe the pipes weren't the only thing creaking in this house after all. Years blurred together, the whispers and knocks becoming a grim rhythm in the symphony of my life. I learned to exist amidst the unsettling background noise. The first few times it happened outside the bathroom, I'd run, heart pounding a frantic tattoo against my ribs, searching for solace in the company of others. But soon, the whispers followed wherever I went. In the library amidst rustling pages, in the crowded school hallway, in the dead of night tucked under my covers. The voices varied, sometimes a desperate plea, sometimes a guttural growl. I started naming them silently, a strange coping mechanism. There was the weeping one, whose voice sounded clogged with tears, and the screecher, whose high-pitched shriek sent shivers down my spine. Tonight it was the basher. I was huddled beneath my desk, surrounded by textbooks I wouldn't crack open anyway, when the pounding began. It wasn't on the door, but against the wall, sending tremors through the floorboards. "Let me in." The voice boomed, each word punctuated by a heavy glow. My teeth chattered, books forgotten. This was different. More aggressive, more violent. My mom burst into the room, concern etched across her face. "Honey, what's going on? Is there an earthquake?" "No," I choked out, voice barely a whisper. She scanned the room, eyes flitting nervously to the trembling wall. "Are you sure? Maybe you should call Mr. Henderson again about the pipes." There was no point in explaining. No one ever believed me. "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile. The pounding ceased as abruptly as it began. Relief washed over me, leaving behind a chilling emptiness. The silence screamed louder than any voice ever could. My mom patted my shoulder, worry softening her eyes. "If you ever feel unsafe, you promise to tell me, right?" I nodded, but the promise felt hollow. How could I explain something no one else could hear? Later that night, as I lay in bed, staring at the moon-streaked ceiling, I heard a soft sigh beside me. The weeping one. "Don't worry," it rasped, the voice strangely comforting this time. "We won't leave you alone." A cold dread coiled in my stomach. The voices might not be malevolent, but their presence was a constant reminder of my isolation, of the unseen force that seemed to be circling me ever closer. The whispers became background noise, a constant hum in the symphony of my existence. I learned to tune them out, focusing on the tasks at hand, school, work, the daily routines that kept me tethered to a semblance of normalcy. But the voices, far from being passive observers, began to interact. The weeping one, once a solitary figure in my mind's ear, started murmuring reassurances during exams or presentations. It was a bizarre form of support, like having a ghostly cheerleader whispering encouragement from the back of the room. "You can do this," it would rasp during my history presentation. "Don't let them see you fear them." Them? I once whispered back, heart hammering against my ribs. "Who are you talking about?" Silence. Then, a dry chuckle from the corner. The screecher. "Everyone, darling," it cackled, sending shivers down my spine. "They can all hear us, just not like you." Panic choked my throat. Was the screecher right? Were the whispers audible to everyone but me? No, the weeping one interjected, its voice laced with urgency. "Ignore it. It lies." The internal conversation, if you could call it that, left me shaken. But as the years passed, a strange symbiosis formed. One particularly stressful day at work, when the printer jammed for the third time and my boss hovered like a menacing cloud, the voices reached a crescendo. The screecher cackled with glee, while the weeping one whimpered. Frustration bubbled over. "Shut up," I yelled, slamming my fist on the desk. My startled coworker dropped his stapler. "Everything okay in here?" he asked cautiously. I forced a smile, just a bit overwhelmed. "Thanks for checking." He nodded awkwardly and retreated. That night, as I lay in bed, I braced myself for the usual symphony of voices. Silence. An unsettling silence. Had they finally left me alone? Just as hope flickered, a new voice filled the room. A guttural growl, unlike anything I'd heard before. "It's time," it growled, sending a wave of terror washing over me. Time for what? The question hung heavy in the air, along with the unspoken threat simmering beneath the surface. The uneasy truce with the voices seemed to be over. Whatever was coming, it felt different. Bigger. More menacing. And this time there was nothing the weeping one or any other voice could do to soothe my growing fear. The growl echoed in my head for days, a constant reminder of the impending change. The familiar whispers continued, but they carried a new edge of urgency, a frantic counterpoint to the chilling promise. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. The nights were a cacophony of voices, each one vying for dominance, their pronouncements growing more cryptic and frightening. "Don't trust the light," the screecher cackled one night. "Seek refuge in darkness," the weeping one countered, its voice raspy with desperation. The conflicting advice only amped up my anxiety. I started keeping the curtains drawn throughout the day, the dimness offering a false sense of security. My social life dwindled. Explaining the whispers and the constant feeling of being watched was a bridge too far. Even my best friend, Sarah, started giving me worried glances whenever I zoned out, eyes flitting nervously around the room. "You haven't been yourself lately," she said one afternoon, her voice laced with concern. "Is everything okay?" I hesitated, the urge to confide in her warring with the fear of being ridiculed. "Just stressed," I lied, forcing a smile. The lie felt heavy on my tongue, but I couldn't bear the thought of losing her too. The next day, the first physical manifestation arrived. I was walking home from work, lost in a nervous reverie, when a sudden gust of wind slammed the bakery door shut beside me. I flinched, heart jumping into my throat. The air inside the bakery felt thick and heavy, a stark contrast to the bright sunshine filtering through the window. Then, a voice rasped from a dark corner, not the usual whispers, but a single, chilling word. "Closer." Panic clawed at my throat. The voice wasn't in my head. It was real. Terror propelled me towards the door, but it wouldn't budge. I slammed my fist against the glass, screaming for help, but no sound escaped my lips. It was as if the air itself refused to carry my pleas. Tears streamed down my face as the rasping voice grew louder, filled with a hunger that sent chills down my spine. Trapped and alone, I finally understood the screecher's cryptic warning. The light wasn't safe. Panic hammered against my ribs as I threw myself against the bakery door, the glass vibrating under the impact. The rasping voice, now a chorus of guttural growls, echoed in the confined space. I choked back a scream, the raw terror stripping me of any coherent thought. Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the corner caught my eye. A hulking shadow shifted in the dimness, tendrils of something dark swirling around it. My breath hitched, the sight of it solidifying my worst fears. "Don't let it touch you," the weeping one rasped in my head, the urgency in its voice a stark contrast to its usual mournful tone. "Run for the back," shrieked the screecher, its high-pitched cry cutting through the growls. I didn't know who to listen to. Logic a distant casualty of the terror gripping me, but the idea of the shadowy figure touching me sent a primal scream echoing through my mind. In a desperate bid for escape, I lunged towards the back door I vaguely remembered seating earlier. My fingers grasped the knob, turning it with trembling hands. This time it yielded. I stumbled into a narrow alleyway, the night sky a welcome sight above me. The air was cool against my sweat-slicked skin, but the relief was short-lived. The growls followed me, gaining in intensity with each desperate footfall. Just as I considered giving in to the inevitable, a rough hand clamped over my mouth, stifling my scream. A strong arm wrapped around my waist, dragging me deeper into the shadows. "Who's there?" I croaked, terror battling with a flicker of desperate hope. "It's okay," a gruff whisper answered, surprisingly close to my ear. "Stay quiet." The voice belonged to a man, his silhouette vaguely discernible in the darkness. He ushered me into a small alcove behind an overflowing dumpster, the stench momentarily pushing the terror aside. "Whatever it is," the man continued, his voice low and urgent, "it can't follow us here. Not in the dark." I couldn't see his face, but his words held a weight of authority that calmed the storm raging within me. For the first time in what felt like forever, a sliver of hope peeked through the suffocating fear. The stench from the overflowing dumpster assaulted my nostrils, a pungent counterpoint to the pounding of my heart. My savior remained shrouded in darkness, his grip on my arm firm, but not unkind. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice babely above a choked gasp. "Someone who can help," he replied cryptically. "For now, stay quiet. We need to wait them out." The growls from the street seemed to intensify, echoing off the brick walls of the alley. My mind conjured terrifying images of the shadowy figure, its hunger a tangible force pressing against the darkness. What were those things? I managed, my voice trembling. I don't know exactly, he admitted, a hint of frustration in his voice. But they can't tolerate darkness. It weakens them. The knowledge offered little comfort. The darkness felt suffocating, pressing in on me from all sides. I longed for the reassuring glow of a street lamp, a sentiment that seemed nonsensical moments ago. The minutes stretched into an eternity, punctuated only by the rhythmic rasping from the street. My savior, whoever he was, remained silent, his presence a source of strange comfort. Finally, a change. The growl started to dwindle, fading into an unsettling silence. "They're gone," the man whispered, his voice tight with caution. "For now." He released his hold on me, and I stumbled back, finally able to see him clearly in the faint moonlight. He was tall and wiry, his face obscured by a worn fedora that cast a deep shadow over his eyes. "Who are you?" I repeated, this time with more urgency. "Do you know about the voices?" He stared at me for a long moment, a flicker of something akin to pity in his gaze. Then he sighed deeply. "Come with me," he said, his voice gruff but strangely reassuring. "There's a place you need to see, a place that might have answers." His words sparked a flicker of hope. Maybe this mysterious stranger held the key to understanding not just the terrifying creatures in the dark, but the voices that had tormented me for so long. Hesitation warmed with desperation, but facing the voices and whatever lurked in the shadows alone was no longer an option. Taking a deep breath, I nodded, ready to step further into the unknown. We weaved through the labyrinthine alleys, the man leading the way with an assuredness born of familiarity. The city, once a canvas of familiar streets, felt alien under the cloak of darkness. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of a fire escape sounded amplified in the oppressive night. "They won't follow us here," the man finally spoke, his voice a low rumble in the quiet. "Who are you?" I blurted out, the question burning a hole in my throat. "And where are we going?" He stopped abruptly, turning to face me. The moonlight finally fell on his face, revealing a network of wrinkles, etched by hardship. His eyes, a piercing blue, held a depth of experience that sent shivers down my spine. "There's no time for explanations right now," he said, his voice gruff, but not unkind. "We need to get to the sanctuary before." He trailed off, a flicker of worry crossing his features. "Before what?" I pressed, my voice barely a whisper. He hesitated, then sighed heavily. "Before they find you again. There are others like you, people who can hear the whispers, who are hunted by those things in the dark." My mind reeled. All these years I thought I was alone. No, this stranger was telling me there were others who shared my burden, a secret society hidden in the shadows. "The sanctuary," I rasped, the word tasting foreign on my tongue. "Is that where they are?" "A safe haven," he confirmed, his gaze unwavering. "A place where you can learn to control the voices, maybe even understand them." Control. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Could I finally silence the constant murmur in my head? "But how do you know about all this?" I asked, curiosity warring with my fear. "We all have our stories," he said cryptically, before turning and resuming his trek through the maze of alleys. There was so much more I wanted to ask, but something in his demeanor told me it wasn't the time. We walked for what felt like hours, the silence punctuated only by the rhythmic tap of our shoes on the uneven pavement. As dawn approached, the city began to stir, casting the alleyways in a sickly grey light. Finally, we stopped before a nondescript building tucked away in a forgotten corner. Its peeling paint and boarded-up windows did little to inspire confidence. "This is it," the man said, gesturing towards the building. "Welcome to the sanctuary." My heart pounded against my ribs, a mix of fear and hope swirling within me. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, ready to face whatever secrets this hidden place held. And maybe, just maybe, finally find some peace from the voices in my head. The peeling paint of the sanctuary creaked under my touch as I pushed open the rickety door. A stale, dusty scent filled my nostrils, laced with the faintest hint of incense. Inside, the dim light revealed a cluttered room that looked like a forgotten attic. Cobwebs draped dusty furniture, and overflowing bookshelves lined the walls. Behind a cluttered desk sat an elderly woman, her eyes closed, a string of worry beads clutched in her wrinkled hands. "Elias," she rasped, her voice cracking with age. "You brought another one." The man, whom I'd learned was named Elias, nodded curtly. "She needs our help, Helena." Helena opened her eyes, the pupils sharp and clear despite her age. They settled on me, a flicker of something akin to recognition crossing her features. "You can hear them," she stated, not a question but a fact. I swallowed nervously, a small, embarrassed nod escaping my lips. Elias placed a hand on my shoulder, offering silent reassurance. "Tell her," he said gently. "Tell her what happened." So I did. The whispers, the shadows, the terrifying encounter in the bakery. As I recounted the events, Helena listened intently, her weathered face betraying no emotion. "They're getting bolder," she murmured once I finished, her voice laced with concern. "Why?" I blurted before I could stop myself. "Why do they want me?" Helena exchanged a worried glance with Elias. "We don't know for sure," Elias said, his voice gruff. "But there are stories, whispers of a prophecy, of a listener who holds the key to something powerful." "A prophecy?" I echoed, fear clawing at my throat. "What kind of prophecy?" Helena rose from her chair, her movements surprisingly agile for her age. "We'll talk more later, child," she said, her voice firm. "Right now, you need rest. This place offers a shield from the whispers, but it won't last forever." Confusion swirled within me. There were more questions than answers, but exhaustion finally won over my curiosity. Elias led me to a small, dusty room off the cluttered main hall. The bed looked like it hadn't been slept in for years, but it offered the promise of sleep, something I hadn't experienced in days. As I drifted off, a single thought echoed in my mind. If I was the key who was trying to unlock me, and for what purpose? Sleep came in stolen moments, punctuated by flashes of the shadowy figure and the chilling growls. Dawn's pale light filtering through the grimy window finally chased away the nightmares. I emerged from the cramped room to find Elias hunched over a dusty tome, his brow furrowed in concentration. The air crackled with a tension that hadn't been present the night before. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice hoarse. He looked up, a grim expression on his face. "They're back," he said, his voice low and urgent. "They know you're here." Panic clawed at my throat. "But you said this place was safe," I stammered, my heart hammering against my ribs. Elias shook his head. "No place is truly safe, not forever. We need to prepare you." The day that followed became a blur of activity. Helena, her frail frame seemingly energized by a newfound purpose, tutored me in the history of the listeners, a lineage of people who could hear the whispers and the entities behind them. "They are neither demons nor ghosts," she explained, tracing symbols on a weathered scroll. "They are echoes, fragments of a power long forgotten, trapped between worlds." There were exercises too, meditation techniques to quiet the constant chatter in my head, breathing exercises to focus the sliver of control I supposedly had over the voices. By nightfall, exhaustion settled over me like a heavy cloak, but the fear was a constant companion, fueled by the knowledge that the things lurking in the dark were circling closer. As I lay on the makeshift bed, the whispers seemed louder, more frantic. The screecher cackled with glee, while the weeping one whimpered warnings of impending danger. "Don't listen to them," a voice, deeper and more powerful than any I'd heard before, resonated in my mind. I jolted upright, heart pounding a frantic rhythm. The voice echoed again, this time filled with an almost paternal warmth. "Focus on me, child," it instructed. "Let the others fade away." Following the voice's guidance, I focused on the warmth, the power that emanated from it. Slowly, the frantic whispers receded, replaced by a comforting silence. "Who are you?" I whispered, a sliver of hope blossoming in my chest. The voice chuckled, a sound both ancient and comforting. "A friend," it replied, "and perhaps the key to unlocking your true potential." The revelation hung heavy in the air, along with the promise of a fight for survival and the potential for something more. The ability to control the voices, not just hear them. The following days were a whirlwind of training. The whispers returned, but the new voice, the one it called itself Guardian, helped me filter them out. It felt ancient, a powerful entity trapped within me, yearning to break free. Helena and Elias, seasoned veterans in the fight against the unseen entities, drilled me on ancient rituals and forgotten languages. The knowledge was overwhelming, but a spark of defiance ignited within me. I wouldn't be a helpless victim anymore. "They feed off your fear," Elias said during one particularly intense training session. He stood before me, arms outstretched, mimicking the shadowy figure in the bakery. "Use your fear. Channel it." Helena chimed in, her voice surprisingly forceful. "Turn it into a weapon." The idea terrified me. How could I weaponize my own fear? "Focus on the Guardian," Elias instructed. "Let it guide you." Trembling, I closed my eyes and visualized the comforting warmth of the Guardian's presence. As I did, a sliver of control emerged. The fear still churned within me, but it felt contained, controlled. With a deep breath, I focused it on Elias, pushing it outwards like a tangible force. He stumbled back, a look of surprise on his face. "Whoa!" he exclaimed. "That was impressive." I opened my eyes, a mixture of exhilaration and fear washing over me. The power felt intoxicating, but the thought of losing control sent shivers down my spine. "Be careful," Helena warned, her voice laced with concern. "This power is a double-edged sword. Use it wisely." I nodded, vowing to heed her words. Over the next few days, I continued to train, honing my newfound ability to manipulate fear. The whispers, once a cacophony of torment, became a source of information. They relayed the movements of the shadowy figures outside the sanctuary, their frustrated shrieks a testament to the sanctuary's weakening shield. "They're getting desperate," Elias declared one evening, his face grim. "They'll breach the barrier soon." My stomach clenched. Despite the training, I couldn't help but be scared. The sanctuary, despite its flaws, had been a haven. Now it felt like a fortress under siege. Helena, however, seemed unfazed. Her eyes, usually clouded with age, now burned with a fierce determination. "Then we fight," she declared, her voice ringing with a power I hadn't seen before. "We fight for ourselves, for the legacy of the listeners, and for the future." Her words sparked a similar fire within me. "We fight," I echoed, my voice stronger than I thought possible. The battle was coming. I didn't know if I was ready, but fear wouldn't control me anymore. Armed with newfound power, a voice of guidance, and the unwavering support of the sanctuary, I was prepared to face the darkness head-on. The air crackled with a malevolent energy, the whispers morphing into a deafening roar. The sanctuary's wards, once vibrant with a comforting hum, pulsed erratically. "They're here," Elias said, his voice grim. "Brace yourselves." We stood shoulder to shoulder in the main hall, Helena at the center, her wizened frame radiating power. She chanted a low mantra in an unknown language, her voice weaving a protective tapestry around the sanctuary. The floorboards groaned, dust raining down from the cobwebs as unseen forces pressed against the barrier. "Fear not," the Guardian boomed in my mind, its voice a comforting anchor in the storm of terror. "Channel it, fuel the shield." Following its guidance, I focused on the raw, primal fear churning within me, molding it, shaping it into a weapon. The terror surged outwards, bolstering the protective shield around the sanctuary. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed through the room. A tendril of inky darkness, swirling with malicious energy, snaked through the weakened barrier. It pulsed with a hunger that sent chills down my spine. "There," Helena cried, pointing at the encroaching darkness. "Focus your fear there. Don't let it breach the shield." My concentration wavered. The darkness writhed and pulsated, promising an end to the torment, to the whispers. "Don't be fooled," the Guardian warned. "Embrace the fight. It is what keeps us whole." With a renewed surge of defiance, I focused all my fear on the tendril. The darkness hissed, recoiling from the onslaught. It pulsed for a moment longer, then vanished with a final, frustrated shriek. The pressure on the shield lessened, but the danger wasn't over. More tendrils of darkness writhed around the barrier, their combined force threatening to shatter it completely. Desperation tinged the whispers in my head. The screecher cackled with manic glee, while the weeping one moaned pleas for mercy. "Ignore them," the Guardian commanded. "Focus on the shield. Let them fear you." Pain lanced through my head as I poured more and more fear into the shield. But with each repelled attack, I felt a growing sense of control, a power I never knew I possessed. Finally, with a collective shriek, the tendrils recoiled, dissolving back into the blackness outside. The silence that followed was almost deafening. Exhaustion washed over me, my legs threatening to buckle beneath me. But a wave of elation surged through me too. We had held them back. Helena, her face pale but triumphant, stumbled towards me. "You did it," she rasped, her voice choked with emotion. "You held the barrier." I looked at Elias, a weary smile gracing his lips, a newfound respect shone in his eyes. We had all played our part. But the victory felt hollow. We had repelled this attack, but for how long? As I collapsed onto a dusty chair, the unsettling truth settled over me. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The air hung heavy with the aftermath of the battle. Dust motes danced in the pale light filtering through boarded-up windows, the silence broken only by the rasping breaths of the wounded. Helena lay on a makeshift cot, her face drawn but a faint smile playing on her lips. "You were magnificent, child," she rasped, her voice weak. I sat beside her, overwhelmed with a mix of exhaustion and elation. We had held back the darkness, but at a cost. Elias's face, bruised and scratched, surveyed the damage to the wards with a grim expression. "They won't hold for much longer," he said finally, his voice filled with a quiet despair. "The barrier's been crippled." Fear snaked through me. If the sanctuary's shield couldn't protect us, what did the future hold? "There has to be another way," I said, my voice trembling slightly. Helena's gaze met mine, her eyes filled with a wisdom born from years of struggle. There is, she said, her voice gaining strength. But it's a dangerous path, one fraught with unknowns. What is it? I asked, leaning closer. She took a ragged breath. The prophecy, she whispered, speaks of a listener who can not only hear the whispers, but control the very essence of the entities themselves. Control. The word resonated within me, both terrifying and exhilarating. Could it be the key to ending this constant battle, to silencing the whispers forever? But how? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How do I control something I barely understand? The Guardian, Helena said, her voice raspy. It holds the key. It can teach you to harness its power, to turn the whispers against themselves. The Guardian, the voice in my head, the source of both comfort and unease. Could I trust it completely? It's a gamble, Elias said, his voice gruff. But maybe our only one. I closed my eyes, wrestling with the weight of the decision. Could I control a power that felt so vast, so alien? The whispers, once a source of torment, now offered their own insidious counsel. The screecher cackled, promising freedom from fear, while the weeping one whimpered warnings of oblivion. Silence. I roared, the word echoing through the room. The whispers faltered, then fell silent. A surge of power pulsed through me, fueled by determination and a desperate hope. I will learn, I declared, my voice ringing with newfound resolve. I will control the whispers. We will not be victims anymore. Helena offered a frail smile, her eyes shining with a flicker of pride. Elias nodded, a glimmer of determination replacing his despair. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but for the first time, I felt a sliver of hope. With the Guardian's guidance and my newfound resolve, maybe, just maybe, we could turn the tide of this war. The whispers might be a curse, but perhaps they could also be the key to our survival.